Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Here are the top stories of the news. Atiku heads to Presidential Election Petition Tribunal to challenge the declaration of Bola Tinubu as president-elect. Senate to investigate 19 constitution alteration bills rejected by President Muhammadu Buhari. On the foreign scene, President Vladimir Putin says China's peace plan for Ukraine could be used as basis to end war. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. My name is Tunde Ido. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party PDP, Atiku Abubakar, has approached the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal to contest the declaration of Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress APC as president-elect. The filing was confirmed by a member of the Atiku legal team, Silas Joseph Onu, yesterday evening. This comes hours after the Labour Party and its candidate Peter Obi had similarly filed a petition at the Election Petitions Tribunal in Abuja, challenging Senator Tinubu's status as the winner of the February 25, 2023 presidential elections. The petitioners are praying for the tribunal to declare that Senator Tinubu was not duly elected by a majority of the lawful vote cast at the election. The PDP candidate wants the tribunal to nullify Senator Tinubu's victory and withdraw the certificate of return issued to him and declare Mr. Abubakar as the winner of the election. The Abia State government has tackled Labour Party governorship candidate Alex Otti over his allegation that the People's Democratic Party PDP and Governor Okezi Ikpeazu are plotting to rig the governorship election. The Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Abia State, Eze Chikam Nayo, in a statement accused Mr. Otti of brandishing false claims and instigating innocent citizens. Mr. Chikam Nayo said the Labour Party candidate was attempting to use strong-arm tactics, blackmail and violence as instruments for what he termed as fraudulent power acquisition. Mr. Chikam Nayo wants the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to fire the state returning officer Nena Otsi over alleged family ties to the Labour Party candidate. Meanwhile, the collation of the Abia State governorship election will resume by 4 p.m. today at the Collation Center located inside the premises of the Independent National Electoral Commission in Umuahia, the state capital. On Monday, the electoral body announced the suspension of the results, saying it took the decision after a meeting to review the elections. The Bauchi Police Command have arrested 11 suspects in the state for alleged criminal conspiracy, thuggery, being in possession of dangerous weapons, and disturbing public peace in some parts of the Bauchi Metropolitan. Also, at least one person is reported dead in Karumfin Madaki as thugs attacked the area. A statement issued by the police public relations officer Ahmed Wakili indicates that 30 assorted dangerous weapons have been recovered by the police during a raid of the metropolis. According to the statement, the tactical teams attached to the command sustained I'll take that again. According to the statement, the tactical teams attached to the command sustained an aggressive stance against miscreants across the state in a bid to curtail the breakdown of law and order following the concluded gubernatorial and state assembly elections. Mr. Wakili also stated that the Commissioner of Police, Aminu Al-Hassan, is meeting with grassroots leaders to forestall future violence and improve community participation in the fight against crime. The United States mission in Nigeria has spoken out against what it described as the disturbing act of violence, voter intimidation and suppression that marred last Saturday's governorship elections. In a statement published on its website, the mission described the use of ethnically charged rhetorics before, during and after the governorship election in Lagos as particularly concerning. The U.S. mission calls on Nigerian authorities to hold accountable and bring to justice any individual found to have ordered or carried carried out efforts to intimidate voters and suppress voting during the election process. According to the statement, the United States says it will consider all available actions, including additional visa restrictions on individuals believed to be responsible for or complicit in undermining the democratic process in Nigeria. The mission, however, commended all Nigerian political actors, religious and community leaders, youths and citizens who rejected and condemned such violence and inflammatory language, affirming Nigerians' commitment to and respect for the democratic process. As reactions continue to trail the results of last Saturday's House of Assembly elections in Osun State, the lack of women representation and the age margin amongst elected lawmakers have drawn attention. Emmanuel Ujuadugele examines the dynamics and demography of the newly elected assembly and now reports.
In the outgoing 7th Osun Assembly, there are two women, Dr. Mulika Tabiola of Ifelodun State Constituency and Mrs. Elizabeth Abioye of Ifedayo State Constituency. While Dr. Abiola chaired the Committee on Women Affairs, Mrs. Abioye headed the Committee on Health. But there will be a stark contrast in the 8th Assembly as all 26 seats were won by men. Ms. Jumoke Olawoyin, who styles herself as a pan-Nigerian, says this is regrettable and blames it on what she says is political economics.
I think the problem starts with the economics. The women don't have the kind of money that is required to contest in politics. Because politics in Nigeria has been so monetized, I really think we should be ashamed of ourselves. Politics is such a thing that means we are supposed to put our best foot forward. So if we have a young guy that is 20, a young woman that is 25, they should be able to come out and contest.
The dynamics of the 8th Assembly means that the chairman, House Committee on Women Affairs, will be a man. Ms. Olawoyin also argues that women must be given a pride of place and everyone must join hands to make this happen.
There are issues of the young men that in some areas don't believe women should be heard. In year 2023, there are still young men that don't believe a woman can be governor, can represent them in the house, but she's only good for the kitchen. So it means we still need a lot of education to do. We need to begin an awareness program. The government should not just place lip service. They should seriously begin to educate the general population to understand that the world is moving on, it's changing. Nigeria is part of the rest of the world, and Nigeria needs to play catch-up in a mighty hurry, because if not, we'll be so left behind that we'll become totally irrelevant.
At the outgoing 7th Assembly, the two joint youngest members are 38-year-old Obokun lawmaker Adeyemi Adewumi and Olaoluwa lawmaker Adirulai Adegbile, while the oldest in that assembly is lawmaker representing Irepo Odun-Orolu, Nasir Olateju, at 74. The 8th Assembly improves on this, with 27-year-old Prince Kashokwe Abolarin of Ifedayo State Constituency, the youngest. Team lead of Urban Alert, a non-governmental organization, Anthony Adejuwon, says this is good for democracy at the grassroots. He, however, worries about the number of young people compared to the older class.
We're supposed to have moved forward than the level we have when we talk about youth participation in politics or in governance. We still have that wide margin between the older people and younger people, participating in politics. And at this point, youth in Osun State should begin to see the importance of them coming into the front line of politics and politicking, and not just taking appointments as media heads, as senior special assistants to the older politicians. If they are the future of tomorrow, and tomorrow is now, they just need to step in and begin to take that responsibility.
Mr. Adejuwon also calls for more inclusion for women.
It's so unfortunate that out of the 26 elected members, none of them is a female. And it's so funny that we even have offices, we have committees in the House that is expected, normally to be chaired by a female. The House Committee on Women and Children Affairs should, normally be chaired by a female. So how are we going to, say that a man is now the chair for such a committee in the coming house? It's not too good, and it's something that the residents of Osun State need to begin to think about and ensure that we give the women their able place in politics and in governance.
There are 38 legislative seats available in Osun State, 3 at the Senate, 9 at the House of Representatives, and 26 at the State House of Assembly. Upon inauguration, all of the seats will be occupied by men, and some commentators say this is not good for representation, fairness, and equity. Emmanuel Ujadigele, Western Spring Television News.
In other news, the Federal High Court in Abuja today dismissed an application by a suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, seeking to strike out charges against him. In his ruling, Justice Emeka Nwite Kyari dismissed the application on the ground that the court has the exclusive right and jurisdiction to hear drug-related cases as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA) Act. Mr. Kyari had told the court that the charges against him were premature, insisting that the NDLEA ought to have allowed police to exhaust its internal machinery before it instituted the action. He told the court that the police had already commenced an investigation into allegations against him and issued an interim report, but the judge stated that the powers of the Police Service Commission do not supersede the powers of the Federal High Court. Mr. Kyari, who is a former head of the intelligence response team of the Nigeria Police Force, is facing prosecution by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Justice Peter Lifu of the Federal High Court in Lagos has struck out the federal government suit seeking to recover and forfeit the sum of 70 trillion naira it's alleged was stashed in 29 bank accounts by looters. The judge stated that the federal government's lawyers and the private lawyers, which it subsequently gave an order, did not diligently prosecute the case. 17 commercial banks and Nigerian Ajib Oil Company Limited and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation were listed as defendants and respondents in the suit. Federal government had in August 2021 obtained an interim order from Justice Tijani Rigim for the forfeiture of the 70 trillion naira, but the case was later transferred to Justice Lifu, who in 2022 vacated the interim order following federal government's failure to meet the terms of the order. Delivering judgment on the substantive suit yesterday, Justice Lifu held that since the vacation of the interim order, it has been back and forth with various excuses, applications for adjournment at the instance of the plaintiffs and applicants' counsel Mohammed Ndarani. The Federal High Court sitting in Ikoyi, Lagos has adjourned further hearing in the trial of a former governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, and his company, Spotless Investment Limited, over an alleged 6.9 billion naira fraud till the 8th of May 2023. Justice Chukwujeku Aneke adjourned proceedings after listening to the testimony of the 12th prosecution witness, a former Minister of State for Defense, Musili Obanikoro. In his testimony, Mr. Obanikoro told the court that he had no document showing that he withdrew the sum of 1.2 billion naira, which he allegedly gave Mr. Fayose. Mr. Obanikoro, in his previous testimony, had told the court that the sum of 1.2 billion naira was deposited into the account of the company, Silva Makanmara, to fund clandestine security operations to prevent terrorist activities in Lagos State in 2 installments. The case has been adjourned till the 8th of May and 9th and June 6th and 8th, 2023 for the continuation of the trial. Publisher of Desert Herald, Toko Mamu, has asked a federal high court in Abuja to grant him bail. Mr. Mamu was arraigned yesterday by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation on a 10-count charge bordering on terrorism. However, he pleaded not guilty to all the counts and denied having allegiance to the terrorists. After arraignment, Sonny Katu, Mamu's lawyer, drew the court's attention to a bail application filed for his client, adding that his client is suffering from a disease that requires surgery. However, the presiding judge in Yang Ekwo reserved a ruling on the bail application to a date that will be communicated to the parties for a ruling on the bail plea, but ordered Mr. Mamu to remain in DSS custody pending the determination of the bail application. Mr. Mamu is alleged to have received $120,000 as ransom payments on behalf of the Boko Haram terrorist group from families of hostages kidnapped during the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. You're watching Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break. Please stay with us.
Damosi Adegoke Adelabu was a prominent figure in Ibadan politics and Western region before Nigeria's independence. He was a key founder of the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, a political party that held lofty the torch of liberty for the two West African countries. He carved a niche for himself as a wordsmith and a creative speaker. The nickname Kwenkelemens was a natively corrupted version of Peculiar Mess, his bombastic English language style often used to score proceedings at the parliament. The author of Africa in Ebullition, a handbook of freedom for Nigerian nationalists, was Nigeria's Federal Minister of Natural Resources and Social Services between 1955 and 1956. He died in an auto crash on the 25th March 1958 at the age of 42. Western Spring Television identifies Adegoke Adelabu as a watershed character in history. The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history.
Thank you for staying with us. In other news, the Senate President Ahmad Lawan has stated the Senate will investigate the 19 constitution alteration bills rejected by President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. Lawan made this known during plenary yesterday. The National Assembly had in January transmitted 35 constitutional alteration bills to the president for assent, but President Buhari had on Friday last week assented to 16 out of the 35 bills. Mr. Lawan noted that the most striking of the 16 bills that President Buhari assented to was the 5th Alteration Bill, number 6, which makes provision for financial independence of state houses of assembly and the judiciary. The first of the 19 bills rejected by the president was the 5th Alteration Bill, number 24, which sought an act to alter the second schedule to the 1999 Constitution to empower the National Assembly and state houses of assembly to summon the president and governors to answer questions on issues on which the National and state houses of assembly have the powers to make. Also rejected was the 5th Alteration Bill number 22, which sought an act to alter the provisions of the 1999 Constitution to specify the period within which the president or the governor of a state shall present the appropriation bill before the National Assembly or House of Assembly. On the foreign scene, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has said China's peace plan for Ukraine could be used as a basis to end the war. But Mr. Putin said the plan could be put forward only when they are ready in the West and Kiev. The Russian leader met Chinese President Xi Jinping yesterday in Moscow to discuss the conflict and relations between the two countries. China's plan, published last month, does not explicitly call for Russia to leave Ukraine, but called for peace talks and respect for national sovereignty without specific proposals. But Ukraine has insisted on Russia withdrawing from its territory as a condition for any talks, and there is no sign that Russia is ready to do that. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that Moscow could be forced to react if the United Kingdom provides Ukraine with armor-piercing tank ammunition that contains depleted uranium. President Putin was reacting to news that the UK's Minister of State for Defence, Annabel Goldie, had confirmed that ammunition containing depleted uranium was part of a military aid package being sent to Ukraine, along with Challenger 2 battle tanks. The Russian president added that if it happens, Russia will have to respond accordingly, stating that the West collectively was already beginning to use weapons with a nuclear component. Depleted uranium is a byproduct of the nuclear enriching process used to make nuclear fuel or nuclear weapons. The United Nations Environment Program has described such ammunition as chemically and radiologically toxic heavy metal. In the Middle East, at least 13 people have been killed and hundreds injured after a magnitude 6.5 earthquake hit areas across Afghanistan and Pakistan, with tremors felt as far as the Indian capital, New Delhi. A government official revealed today that at least 9 people were killed and 44 injured in northwest Pakistan, while hospitals in northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa were put into a state of emergency overnight. A health ministry official also told journalists that at least 4 people were killed and 50 wounded in Afghanistan. Pakistan's meteorological department put the magnitude slightly higher at 6.8 and later reported a 3.7 magnitude aftershock in the Hindu Kush region along the country's border with Afghanistan. An Israeli air attack has hit Syria's Aleppo airport, causing some material damage in the second strike on the facility this month. The Syrian Defense Ministry said earlier today in a statement on Facebook that the air attack marks the 3rd attack on Aleppo International Airport in 6 months, adding that Israel launched a number of missiles from the Mediterranean Sea west of the coastal city of Latakia. However, the Israeli military declined to comment on the latest attack. Aleppo International Airport has been a major channel for the flow of humanitarian aid into the country since a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit southern Turkey and northwestern Syria on February 6th, killing more than 50,000 people, including more than 6,000 in Syria. Earlier this month, Syrian state media said an Israeli air raid on Aleppo airport has damaged a runway which was taken out of service, forcing the rerouting of relief supplies to Damascus and Latakia. And in business news, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has revealed that Sri Lanka has received the first tranche of its bailout package from the International Monetary Fund (IMF). The first tranche of $330 million comes after the IMF on Monday approved a $3 billion rescue package for the crisis-stricken island nation. President Wickremesinghe said his government official will kick off the next round of talks with bondholders and bilateral creditors in the 3rd week of April, adding that it will create opportunities for low-interest credit, restore foreign investors restore foreign investors' confidence and lay the foundation for a strong new economy. The IMF bailout is expected to catalyze additional support to the tune of $3.75 billion from the likes of the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and other lenders. China, Sri Lanka's biggest bilateral creditor, earlier this month agreed to restructure its loans to the country, clearing the final hurdle to receiving the IMF bailout. The Policy Setting Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has raised the monetary policy rate, which measures interest rate from 17.5% to 18%. Governor of the Apex Bank, Godwin Emefiele, announced the development to journalists today after the committee's meeting at the Central Bank of Nigeria's headquarters in Abuja. The development is the second consecutive time the Apex Bank will be raising the benchmark rate this year. Mr. Emefiele said although inflation has remained on the increase, the previous tightening measures has continued to reduce the rate of price increase.
Financial stability indicators, MPC was comforted that its various decisions in increasing monetary policy rate has had positive impact on inflation, given that inflation rate had started to decelerate in Nigeria. The committee's major considerations at this meeting, therefore, focus on arriving at key policy mechanisms to shield the economy from emerging shocks from the global economy, as well as sustain its focus on domestic price stability. Headline inflation in the view of members remain high, with increased expectations of price development due to the perennial scarcity of PMS and ongoing discourse around the removal of fuel subsidy. With the prices of other energy products also rising, members stressed the importance of addressing price development. Committee also considered the continued impact of exchange rate pressure on domestic price levels and called for policies to attract both portfolio and foreign direct investments to Nigeria.
And talking sports, Tottenham midfielder Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has called on manager Antonio Conte to be more precise following the Italian's rant on Saturday after Sport gave up a 2-goal lead in a 3-3 draw at Southampton. Conte called his players selfish and criticized the club's culture. Reports suggest the 53-year-old, who has returned to Italy during the international break, will be sacked. Spurs remain fourth in the table despite the draw against the Premier League bottom club, but are out of all cup competitions this season. They suffered a tame exit to AC Milan in the Champions League earlier in March, having been knocked out of the FA Cup by Championship side Sheffield United at the start of this month. Shohei Ohtani delivered a fatal 3-2 victory for Japan over the United States yesterday as the Asian powerhouses won the World Baseball Classic for a record third time. Home run from Munetaka Murakami and Kazuma Okamoto helped put Japan ahead before Los Angeles superstar Ohtani closed out the win from the mound in the ninth inning. In a perfectly scripted final at Miami's Lone Depot Park, Ohtani struck out Angels teammate and U.S. captain Mike Trout to claim Japan's third WBC victory following triumphs in 2006 and 2009. The star-studded U.S. team, defending champions after winning the last edition of the tournament in 2017, were left lamenting their inability to get on top of Japan's pitchers. Before we end the news, here is a recap of our top stories. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, has approached the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal to contest the declaration of Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress, APC, as president-elect. The Senate President Ahmad Lawan has stated the Senate will investigate the 19 constitution alteration bills rejected by President Muhammadu Buhari. On the foreign scene, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has said China's peace plan for Ukraine could be used as a basis to end the war. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. That ends Spring News at 12. I am Tunde Ido. Good afternoon.